Have you been studying for your CELPIP test by watching free YouTube videos or finding templates online? Well, watch this video because I'm going to debunk one of the biggest CELPIP myths. Not only am I going to debunk this myth, I'm also going to give you some tips as to how you can correct it. Hi, I'm Maria. I'm a certified Canadian CELPIP expert. I was born and raised in Vancouver, Canada, and I have been helping students from all over the world pass their CELPIP test for the past several years. Did you know that a CELPIP test reader can actually flag your test as cheating if you use a memorized response on your speaking or writing test? That's right, your test can actually be disqualified and you'll have to take your test all over again. Now, why would a CELPIP test reader consider your test as cheating if you use a memorized response? Well, an examiner or a test reader, they want to hear your English, not the English of somebody else's that you found on Google or on YouTube. A CELPIP test reader wants to hear what you can naturally produce. They ultimately want to test your English fluency. And it's very easy for a CELPIP test reader to spot a memorized answer. There's a mismatch between what a test taker can naturally produce and what they have memorized. So after years of working in the industry, helping students prepare for their CELPIP tests, and also working as an examiner for numerous English proficiency tests, I have brought here a few examples of memorized sample responses so that you can get an idea as to what they sound like, and so that you do not bring these memorized responses to your upcoming language proficiency test. I've got a couple here. Now, these are real memorized responses that I have seen over and over and over again, and trust me, if you use something like this on your test, a test taker will immediately flag your response as cheating and you will have to retake your test. So do not use anything like this and really make an effort to produce something natural from you, not from something that you have found on YouTube or on Google. So here is a memorized expression that I have heard over and over again when talking about a personal experience on the CELPIP speaking test. I'll say it a little bit robotic because usually that's how these responses come across, because again, when you have a memorized response, what also happens is that you don't sound like yourself. You have these responses memorized, so your intonation also changes. You don't sound like you're speaking from your core, from who you actually are. It doesn't sound like a natural conversation, so right away the test taker can also tell that it is a memorized response because you have rehearsed it over and over again. What a great question. In my life, I have done many things for the first time. If I had to pick just one thing to talk about, however, here's a memorized response for dealing with a difficult situation, again for the CELPIP speaking test. I've got to say, you're putting me in a tough spot in having to choose between option A and option B, but it's clear as day that... Now, honestly, I don't know who created these sample responses, but I've heard this over and over again when students come to our school and they want to get feedback on their responses, and then we tell them that this is not the way to go. You don't want to use this template and then take it to the test because, again, the examiners have heard this same introduction over and over and over again. And if you use this, they're just going to flag your response as cheating, or at best, they're going to know that you are not capable of producing your own English. And when you use this as a crutch, it just shows that your English fluency is not at a level to get a CLB9, because a CLB9 level speaker would not need to rely on memorized responses to get by on their speaking test. So here's one for expressing your opinion for the CELPIP speaking test. The issue of whether or not blank has been a source of heightened controversy, but I opine that. Now, there is an issue here. Opine. To be honest, nobody speaks like that in real life. Although the word opine is technically, yes, a real word. If you look it up in the dictionary, opine does mean to give one's opinion. Nobody actually says that in real life. If you go out and about in the city, at work, or if you're talking with your friends in real life in Canada, or wherever you are, The word opine is rarely used. It's very old-fashioned English, and I'm not quite sure where this standardized phrase or how it got so popular, but if you use the word opine, it just sounds so unnatural and awkward. And if you think about the purpose of the CELPIP test, the purpose of the CELPIP test is to test your ability to use your English in real life situations. Again, the CELPIP test is testing your English for real life, everyday English for your immigration test. And they also want to test your ability to use your English in formal and informal contexts. Now, would you ever use the word opine at work or with your friends? Likely not very much. Mark, my friend Mark here's in the room, would you use the word opine? Never. So we've got 2 Canadians here in the room. We would never use the word opine. So naturally on a test, an examiner hearing the word opine, it just seems, quite frankly, memorized. And it just stands out right away. I would not use it on a test day. Okay, I've got one now for the writing test. This is for writing task 2 when you have to give a survey response. Now, I'm going to read it out first and tell you what's wrong with it. Both options have some advantages, and I can see why some might prefer option A. If I had to make a choice, however, there are several reasons why I would go for option B. Now, as you can see, this is very memorized. It's literally copy and paste, put it right into the test. Now, why? Do we have any context? Do we know anything about the question at this point? We have no idea what the question is about. It just says that both options have advantages. I can see why some might prefer option A. If I had to make a choice, however, there are several reasons. What are they? Why I would go for option B. We don't know what the 2 options are at this point. I have no idea what tone this is. Who am I speaking to at this point? Is it supposed to be formal or informal? So at this point, I could literally take this memorized expression and just paste it into any prompt. This does not represent my English or as a test taker's English. This is a clear example of a memorized response. And as a test rater, they can easily see that this would not be a clear indicator of somebody's natural English that they can produce. So if you are using something like this, or if you're even using this one, don't use it because your test will get flagged, or at best, it will just not be used as part of your actual English assessment. And you want every single word on your English test to be part of your assessment so that you can get an excellent result on your English test. With such a small word count on the CELPIP test, you want to make sure that every word counts. You don't want to waste it on memorized expressions. So what is the biggest CELPIP myth? The biggest myth is that the CELPIP test is a memorization test, that you can go online, find a bunch of memorized responses, take those responses to the test, and score a CLB 9. That's not how it works. The CELPIP test is an English communication test. The CELPIP test raters want to hear your English, what you can naturally produce on your speaking and writing tests. So I've got 3 tips to help you avoid using memorized responses. Of course, the obvious one is to avoid using memorized responses, but that's not going to be one of my tips, because at English for Canada, we use really good tips. Number 1, speak directly to the person in your prompt. So out of the 8 speaking prompts, some of them you're going to actually speak directly to a person. Pretend that you're having a real conversation. Really put yourself in that situation and imagine that you're having a real conversation with that person. That's going to elicit real language from yourself. It's going to help you get creative so that you think of natural ideas, and it's going to force you to stop using memorized responses. It's going to produce natural English. Number 2, get right to it. Yes, it is important to have a short little introduction to your question, but students and test takers spend so much time giving a lengthy introduction that they take so long to get to the meat, to the crux of their response. And that's the part that the test raters really want to hear. They want to hear you give advice. They want to hear your opinion. That's the part that they're really assessing. And if you take so long to get there, you're really gonna lose your band score. So keep your introduction really, really short. And what happens is when you use these memorized responses, they take up most of your response. So just make your introduction as short as possible and get right to it. Tip number 3, tone of voice. A big part of your assessment on the CELPIP speaking test is your tone of voice. Can you adjust your tone of voice naturally to the context and the profile of who you have to speak to? Is it formal or informal? Do you have to speak to a boss, a friend, or a colleague? And that means, can you adjust and tailor your tone of voice, your intonation, and your language accordingly? Remember, the CELPIP test is an English language test for everyday life. It is not an academic test. You are being assessed on whether or not you can communicate effectively and confidently at work or in your community. So if you are naturally adjusting your tone, you're not going to be using these memorized expressions. Think of it like this. Memorized responses, they sometimes don't fit into every single context. So if you're focusing on speaking with an appropriate tone, you're not going to be relying so much on these memorized responses. If you like these 3 tips for your CELPIP test, don't forget to like and subscribe our channel here. We are a team of Canadian CELPIP experts. Check out our CELPIP prep courses. We offer personalized one-on-one tutoring online so that you can get your CELPIP band scores that you're looking for. And don't forget to check out my premium CELPIP self-study course, an amazing course for you to prepare for your upcoming test, full of sample responses for writing tasks 1 and 2, and all 8 speaking tests with MP3 audios and everything you would need to prepare for your upcoming test, including 2 official paid practice tests. English for Canada is an official CELPIP prep school because we are an official member of the CELPIP network. So if you want to prepare with an official school, check out our website at englishforcanada.com. We hope to see you online very, very soon.